Not all I don't knows are created equal. They can mean very different things depending on the client, the moment, and the energy in the room. And the good news is that once you learn to recognize the different kinds of I don't know you're dealing with, you can respond in a way that's supportive, ethical, and actually deepens the coaching relationship. So in this video, let's unpack some of the most uncommon I don't knows you'll hear and how to respond without panic, without stress, and also without abandoning your role as a coach. Hi, I'm Chris. I'm an accredited coach and supervisor. I'm also a former banking professional, a mother of two, a wife. I'm so many things, as I'm sure you are as well. And this channel is all about helping you grow your competence and confidence to become the masterful coach you were born to be. At the heart of coaching is the belief that clients are already whole, creative, and resourceful enough, that they don't need fixing, that they hold their own answers within. And our job as coaches is to create the space for those answers to emerge. So what do we do when the answers don't come? When we ask a beautiful, open, thought-provoking question, one of our creme de la creme questions, expecting some breakthrough aha moments, and then our client pauses, sighs, and says, I don't know. For a coach, this can feel quite disorienting and even frustrating sometimes. After all, coaching is all about asking the powerful questions that elicit the answers from within. But if there is seemingly nothing to elicit, how can we carry on with the session in a way that's still helpful for our clients? In this video, I'll share with you different ways to meet your clients during these crunchy moments and how to respond in ways that are actually helpful so that you can feel confident and equipped when those inevitable I don't know answers show up, instead of feeling disoriented or unsure how to proceed. So grab your coaching mastery journal where you take notes from your CPT trainings and supervision, as I'm sure there'll be something here you'll want to take away. Okay, let's begin with the scariest and the most common type of I don't know, the advice-seeking I don't know. The one where the client says, I don't know, what do you think I should do? This is actually very common when you coach quote-unquote normal people, not just your fellow coaches. Whether you're a leadership coach helping someone make a difficult decision about their team members, or you're a book writing coach helping a client decide which book idea to commit to. The reason why it's very common and shouldn't be feared at all is actually because the typical case is that you start practicing coaching with your fellow coaches in training, and they know how to play the coaching game. They know the rules. They know that coaching is by definition non-advisory. And so therefore, they don't even ask those questions. So we don't train the muscle of responding to those type of questions. But as soon as you begin coaching other people outside of the coaching training, people who are not coaches themselves, or perhaps even never been coached before, it is very normal for them to go, what do you think I should do? And actually, especially if they hear the question that they've never heard before. So many coaches had this experience, myself included, when we begin working with clients who especially never been coached before, and they tell you the same thing. They say, I've never thought of it before because no one ever asked me that. No one ever asked me about this in such way. And this is a great feeling when you're on the receiving end of it. It's actually a sign that you're doing something right as a coach. So I think it's important to acknowledge that first and foremost, it's in human nature to go, what do you think I should do? Especially for, as I said, normal people. That being said, hearing the what do you think I should do from our clients can often make us tense up, especially as we are at the beginning of our journey as coaches, as we're still developing our skills and confidence, but even the seasoned coaches can get a little bit off guard during those moments. So it's quite a universal feeling is what I want to share with you. And I mean, not surprisingly really, because we were taught not to give advice, right, in coach training. We were taught that coaching is non-advisory by definition. And sometimes when we hear those questions, we can immediately think that we did something wrong as coach. Like, for example, our contracting conversation wasn't as robust as it could have been, or we haven't created sufficient clarity around professional agreement in terms of what coaching is and isn't. I mean, it could be that, especially if it happens with a number of your clients, and if it is, we just got to own up to it and take it to supervision. And if it's not that, please remember that it might just be clients' humanity and perhaps even a habit of asking others what they should do before making their own mind. So here's how we respond to that as coaches. Obviously, we'll hold a pause. And I would recommend to just smile and gently ask, what do you think I would say? Often clients voice their own ideas here, which gives you fresh material to work with. What can sometimes happen as well in coach-client relationships is that the client can unintentionally put us coaches on a pedestal. And when they do that, they can project their own wisdom onto us, almost unintentionally waiting for us to offer it back to them, to perhaps validate what they already know. And asking questions like, what do you think I would say, offers them that opportunity to take that power back and actually own it. They might say, I think it would be good for me to understand my resistance towards taking the next step or committing to a new habit, routine, or start exploring new jobs, for example. If, however, the client insists and says, I really don't know, and that's why I'm asking you, perhaps it's a good opportunity to reaffirm the professional agreement and say, look, we could explore what I think, but I'm not sure it would help you as much as discovering your own perspective. And you can then offer what you're also noticing about your client's body language, energy, or the relationship between you. You might say something like, I'm noticing there is something different in the conversation today, and I wonder if I'm picking up on something. And let them name it. Let the silence do the heavy lifting and see how it lands with the client. Here's the insight that comes up in supervision over and over again. Very often, what happens in a relationship between coach and client in the here and now, during the session, can be very reflective, can be very revealing of clients' relationships out there, because wherever you go, there you are. And pausing, attuning to, and naming what's happening in the space between you right now can actually help clients get clearer on their relationships outside of coaching, be it with their work, partners, family members, and even themselves. You can even, as a coach, name what you're noticing in a very non-judgmental, curious way. You can say, I'm noticing how you're asking about my opinion so often, especially in this session or in previous sessions, and I wonder if that's how you tend to make decisions. And just offer this and see what comes up, because it can reveal a certain pattern in our clients that maybe they do tend to ask other people's opinions before they're making up their own mind. And all of this could be valuable material to explore. And once it's revealed, once you're becoming aware of something, you can then even take it further by tapping into the secondary gain and ask them, what do you secretly enjoy about doing this? Okay, type number 2, the I haven't thought about it, I don't know. And this one is actually a gift. You'll normally hear it as a sort of knee-jerk, I don't know, that comes very quickly after the question. It's more of a filler sentence rather than the actual truth. Clients often say it almost in a mindless, habitual way, because in this case, the truth is not that they actually don't know, it's that they haven't spent enough time formulating their thoughts on the subject. So what they actually need here is time to think. You can ask them, have you ever had a chance to think about it properly? Or even, is there a part of you that's been unintentionally avoiding thinking about it? Which is a really powerful question, by the way. Here's the thing, the realizations that come from such thinking can bring a refreshing clarity. And with clarity comes responsibility. Because once you become aware of something, then comes the question, well, what are you going to do with this awareness? And I'm saying that this particular I don't know is a gift because your question has taken your client somewhere new. And although the exploration after that might not be strictly goal-oriented or directly relate to the goal of coaching, but beyond the A to B part of the coaching process, coaching is there to help our clients to become better thinkers so that they can think for themselves. And we facilitate that change and that transformation by asking our clients the right questions, open-ended and solution-focused. Open-ended so that we can kickstart the exploration, and solution-focused so that we can tap into our clients' resourcefulness and creativity rather than, for example, self-criticism. You know, when our clients ask questions like, why is this happening? What's wrong with me? What have I done wrong again? You know what I mean? So with this particular I don't know, I highly recommend using Nancy Klein's approach in her Time to Think book. I'm sure you've heard of this one before. I'm going to link it down below just in case. And the whole gist of it is basically do not interrupt, do not rush, ask what else or tell me more. There is also a formula in the book that gives you understanding how to formulate the incisive questions, so I highly recommend checking that out as well. All right, next up is the self-censoring I don't know. Sometimes clients do know, but they're scared to say it out loud. Maybe there is something to do with fear. Maybe there is fear of judgment. Maybe there is fear of sounding delusional. And this usually shows up with a shift in body language. This is how you'll probably notice it. They'll show hesitation, breaking eye contact, almost like feeling more distant and less engaged in a conversation. My go-to recommendation here is normally review how established the psychological safety in this relationship and whether you feel like a client can truly open up with you and be honest, maybe even vulnerable. Personally, as a supervisor, I have the whole process how I do this with my clients. And one thing I know for sure that works really well is to reassure the coaches that I support in supervision that they don't have to be on their best behavior with me, that no one is judging their work, that ICF police is not going to come knocking on their door. That I'd much rather them be on their worst behavior here in supervision sessions with me so that they can be at their best out there with their clients. And by the worst behavior, what I mean is actually be real, transparent, messy human beings that we are, and name what's real and what's alive for us. Bring in our quote-unquote negative thoughts into the space and unpacking them. Things like jealousy, insecurity, frustrations, impatience, when we feel frustrated with our clients' progress or lack of thereof. And it's important to bring those real emotions so that we work with the real material. Anywho, so in this case, when it's a self-censoring, I don't know, when you feel a client is holding back, I would first and foremost address the psychological safety in this space. Some of the questions you can ask here as a coach are, I'm sensing there might be a part of you that does have a thought here. Would it feel safe to share it? And is there a part of you that already knows, but maybe feels unsure about saying it yet? Those gentle questions can really unlock certain things that the clients might be holding back. All right, next up, type 4, the knee-jerk, I don't know. This is almost like a reflex, especially with clients who might feel overwhelmed. And not only that, but they have actually been overwhelmed for quite a while with demands from their career or parenting, for example. They say, I don't know, to buy time. They say, I don't know, to almost say, not another thing to think about, not another thing on my already gigantic to-do list. And you will feel it in the space, that sort of urgency, stress, overwhelm. So here's how I would respond to this. Please don't rush to fill the silence. Sometimes coaches feed off the client's stress here, and they really want to jump in with reassurance and say things like, oh, it's very common not to know. It's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. But what I would recommend is to resist the urge to reframe or reassure or make everything okay as quickly as possible, because we might actually not be given enough space for our clients to sit with the discomfort. And especially you'll know that this is what the client needs if, for example, they're looking away. Because if they're looking away, even though there is a silence in the space and no dialogue is happening between you two, the client might be having an internal dialogue that they're not quite ready to share with you yet, but they're in the process of. So please simply wait. And if you struggle with silence in the space, ask yourself, how comfortable am I with my client's discomfort? Because temporary discomfort is kind of part of the process. We can't avoid it. And it's understandable that our clients are going to be feeling uncomfortable with it, obviously. We avoid discomfort as human beings. But it's important that we then hold that comfort with their discomfort that they can hopefully borrow, and that will hopefully help them to move forward. Another note here is that in case with the overwhelm, or when the clients are going through epically intense and busy seasons of their lives, I find it useful to ask them sometimes, did you notice any specific feelings emerge as you were thinking about this question? The thing that I like about this question is that it can help our clients to locate themselves, co-regulate, and feel less pressure to force the clarity. There are also sessions where clients' cup feels so full, and as we know, we can't really pour into a full cup. So there's this metaphorical emptying that needs to happen first, and your best tool here is actually your coaching presence, which means that this session will probably not feel as goal-oriented as you probably prefer to or familiar with, but it's useful nonetheless because you meet your client where they're at. All right, number 5, the genuine I don't know. And this is my favorite one because this is where your clients are telling you the truth. They actually genuinely don't know. They genuinely don't know what their first step should be. They genuinely don't know what about their belief system they need to change. They just genuinely don't know what to do next, for example. And you'll recognize this one because they will maintain an eye contact. They will seem fairly relaxed in their body, and you'll sense that openness in them to explore the options. One of the most annoying things that we can do here as coaches is to get so rigid on the non-advisory nature of coaching that we almost forget how to be human in our sessions. And here's where coaches can kind of get stuck repeating things like, what else could you explore? Well, if you knew, what would it be? What is it that you do know? And they ask those questions over and over until both you and the client are frustrated. Here's the thing, if there is no knowledge to elicit, you can't coach it. And at that point, we kind of need input, not more excavation. So here's how to respond to this. Offer to brainstorm with your client and become their thinking partner. The professional bodies are very clear that coaching is non-advisory, but you can have a dialogue about options and possibilities. An intentional disclosure can also be helpful, as long as it's shared as something to enrich the conversation rather than prescribe the next actions. You can't provide an idea that worked for you or someone you know without attachment, and by following up with the question, what could be your version of this idea? What do you like about this option? What don't you like about this option? What resonates, what doesn't? What feels like you and what doesn't feel like you? Because asking those questions and helping them to have a conversation around it can strengthen their own thinking around this and really cultivate that sense of agency. You're not providing them with the next step. You're not becoming all of a sudden a knowledge holder here. You're just holding lightly a variety of options that they can choose from, and therefore they have power over that choice. So yes, this is the reality. Coaching does elicit the answers from within, but if there is nothing to elicit, peer-like brainstorming or input can actually really help to bridge that gap. Okay, and last but not least, the resistant I don't know. Sometimes I don't know is really, I'm not ready to go there yet. And this usually happens when the client feels rushed past their emotions. In pop culture, we call it spiritual bypassing. This typically happens when, for example, a mindset coach who's very enthusiastic about reframes and affirmations and what if questions can go straight to those interventions. But the client resists engaging with those questions or interventions because their emotional pain hasn't been fully acknowledged before the question came. Here's what's important to remember. Clarity rarely comes before emotions are processed. When clients are holding something raw, confusing, maybe even heavy, they may genuinely need to sit with the feeling first before their mind can make sense of it. This is where a trauma-sensitive approach can be useful, emotions coaching, perhaps even some somatic practices as well. And not because you are suddenly switching into therapy mode, but because you're honoring the pace of the nervous system. Sometimes as coaches, we can feel that if clients show resistance, then it means that something's wrong with our coaching skills or coaching process is failing us. And I want you to remember that clients' resistance is part of the process of human change. If there was no resistance, everyone would change easily and would have never needed coaches or therapists or other helping professionals. So don't make yourself wrong for it. It's part of the package, but do take it to supervision to know how to deal with different resistance types because every client is unique. Okay, so how do we hold space in this case? I would say just slow everything down. Slow everything down. Acknowledge the feeling before trying to move into problem-solving mode. For example, you can say, look, it sounds like this feels really heavy right now. Let's just stay with that for a moment and allow space for emotion. Sometimes naming it or simply giving space is enough to help them regulate and be more present and name what they're going through internally. It might seem like you're not doing very much as a coach in that session, but it actually doesn't mean that the session isn't transformative for the client. Here's what I want you to remember. So next time you hear, I don't know, remember that it's not a failure in your contracting skills, or it's not that the coaching process is failing you. It's just an invitation to tap even more into your core coaching skills. Presence, to slow everything down and give your clients time to think. Curiosity, to poke things out of them and ask about secondary gain. And intuition, what are you sensing in the space? What feels different? What might we be picking up here? And also creating psychologically safe space with your clients. And always take your questions, dilemmas, and worries to supervision so that you can powerfully support your clients and be the best coach you can be. If this was helpful, I'd love for you to reflect on two things. Which I don't know do you encounter most often in your coaching? And how might you approach it differently after watching this? Drop your reflections in the comments below. I always love learning from you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in my next one. Bye for now.